Hello, students. Today we are going to explore one of the most fascinating poets of the 20th century, T.S. Eliot, and understand how he became a central figure in what we call modern poetry. So, before we dive into Eliot's works, let's remind ourselves, what exactly do we mean by modern? Take a break and think for a second that what do we actually mean by modern? Is it something new, something fashionable, something popular? The word modern doesn't simply mean new. It refers to a deep cultural, artistic shift that happened in the early 20th century. The world had just gone through rapid industrialization, urbanization, and most importantly, the First World War, which shattered old beliefs about religion, morality, and progress. And the optimism of the 19th century, the confidence in science, order, and human reason, it all collapsed at once. People began to feel alienated, rootless, and spiritually lost. This disillusionment gave birth to what we now call modernism, which is a movement that sought new forms of expression to match the complexity of modern life. Now let's talk about T.S. Eliot. The full name of T.S. Eliot is Thomas Stearns Eliot. He was born in 1888 in St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States. Later, he moved to England, became a British citizen, and emerged as one of the most influential poets, critics, and thinkers of the 20th century. Eliot was not just a poet, he was a philosopher, a critic, and a literary theorist. He studied philosophy at Harvard and was deeply influenced by French symbolists. He believed that modern life, with its speed, noise, and moral confusion, needed a new kind of poetry, one that could express fragmentation, anxiety, and the loss of faith. He didn't want poetry to be sentimental or personal like much of the romantic poetry before him. Instead, he saw poetry as an intellectual and artistic craft where emotion had to be reshaped through form and image. His early masterpiece, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, written in 1911 and published in 1915, it marks the beginning of modern poetry in England. Here we meet a character called Prufrock. He's a man who is trapped in self doubt, unable to express his emotion, unable to make any kind of a decision in his life. He is simply paralyzed by fear of judgment. This poem reflects the inner paralysis and spiritual emptiness of modern man. Through fragmented imagery, stream of consciousness, and ironic tone, Eliot gives voice to the confusion, alienation of 20th century. Now, students, I want you to look for the meaning of stream of consciousness. But it was the Wasteland in 1922 that truly transformed English poetry. Published just after World War One, The Wasteland presents a world that has lost its meaning, a spiritual desert where people search for renewal. The poem is full of classical, biblical, and literary allusions, mixing voices, language, and culture. There's a chaos in itself, but that chaos has been beautifully, you know, arranged by Eliot in his poem. His poem is so fragmented. You cannot find linearity in that, but this fragmentation is not accidental. It's not that he did not have any idea what he was writing about, but he clearly knew what he wanted to write and why he wanted to write and for whom he wanted to write it. So this fragmentation not being accidental, it reflects the shattered consciousness of a post-war generation. It's as if Eliot is piecing together the ruins of civilization through fragments of memory and myth. That's why in his poem he writes, "These fragments I have showed against my ruins." So his poetry is known for its, complex structure, dense symbolism, and intertextuality. Now I want you to look for the meaning, intertextuality also, and symbolism also, if you really want to know deep about it. Meaning, intertextuality. So his poems, they are known for complex structure, dense symbolism, and of course, like I talked about, intertextuality. Now what is intertextuality? To tell you in brief, it is like, that in a poem there are references to the other text and other traditions. So in order to understand one word in the poem, you need to really know about so many other, texts, so many other traditions and cultures, Eliot is referring about in the poem. Eliot believed that modern poet must be aware of the entire literary tradition. In his essay Tradition and the Individual Talent, Eliot argued that no poet has meaning alone. Means no idea is new. This is what he tries to say. He's trying to say that no idea is new. There is always a seed of that idea that was sown somewhere, in the past by some person. So every new work is a part of a great chain of past literature. So that there is there is, you know there is no novelty. Everything pre-exists somewhere in other form. It is just the poet who brings those things to, again back to life, put those things together, arrange them in a more concrete form, and makes a poem, or makes a work of art. So originally for Eliot, uh, he didn't mean to reject past. He meant reinterpreting the past in the light of the present. So he also proposed the idea of the objective correlative. Students, kindly look into this word also. The belief, and to tell you in brief that what objective correlative is, actually it is a belief that emotion in art must be expressed through an external equivalent. Means, like, there should be, instead of just telling things directly, a poet should make use of some situations, some images, some objects, so that that would evoke similar emotion rather than just stating it directly. Let me clarify it with the help of an example. Instead of just saying that I'm sad, modern poet might describe a deserted street, an empty chair, cold wind. Well, such images will be used to convey the feeling more powerfully. So now we need to talk about the birth of modern poetry. We are really talking about, about a revolution in form, theme, and sensibility. So traditional poetry, as we all know, if I talk about Keats, Wordsworth, and Browning and other poets, so they celebrated beauty, order, nature. But modern poetry confronted chaos, uncertainty, disillusionment, and loss. So the poet was no longer a prophet or a romantic dreamer, just like Keats was, like he was doing in Ode to a Grecian urn, but an observer, a recorder, a voice of fragmentation. So poets like Eliot, Ezra Pound, W.B. Yeats, and W.H. Auden, and many more broke away from the old conventions of rhyme and meter. They experimented with free words, irony, symbolism, and myth. See, modern poetry didn't aim to confront, it aimed to awaken. It mirrored the anxiety of modern existence. It is like curing amnesia of modern poetry. And Eliot stood at the center of this transformation, combining tradition with modern technique, intellect with emotion, despair with the hope of spiritual renewal. So, to sum up, T.S. Eliot is not just a poet, he's actually worked as a bridge between the old world and the modern one. So, through the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, The Wasteland, and Four Quartets, Eliot gave voice to the spiritual crisis of the 20th century. He taught us that poetry must evolve, that it must face the realities of its time, even if they are painful or fragmented. So, when we study Eliot, we are not just reading a poet, we are witnessing the birth of modern poetry itself, complex, layered, questioning, and deeply human. Thank you.